Welcome to DAX Machina. Join us as we explore the mysteries of this world. Cryptids, monsters, macabre tales, and horror stories abound. Could they be true? Are monsters real?
Good evening, folks, and thank you for joining us on another edition of DAX Machina. In the house with me tonight is Robbie Rip Rains, and the man with the black hat and the plan. And we have a special guest tonight. You guys might remember him. He was on about 8 months ago. He's an amazing researcher from up in the northern states. You're in the Upper Peninsula, aren't you, Brian?
No, just below the bridge. So I'm considered a troll.
Okay. So he's up in the Great White North and has had some amazing experiences with Bigfoot and other strange things up in that area. And he's back tonight to talk with us some more. Channel's grown quite a bit, so some of y'all may not have seen the show he was on before. But Baby Hulk himself, Brian Barber, is in the house. He's a man that has done numerous podcasts, and he's had a lot of interesting interactions up there in those deep woods. So, Brian, thank you for joining us. And, tell folks, especially since there's going to be, like I said, some folks that may not have been here last time, introduce yourself, tell us a little bit about your research, and we'll kind of jump from there.
Oh, well, thank you for having me on.
My pleasure.
Last time I had an absolute blast. You guys make it so easy to do this. So I live in northern Michigan, and that's where I do my research. Benzie County. And long story short, Bigfoot's always been part of my life since before even the show In Search of aired. Leonard Nimoy. We were told about Bigfoot when we were little, and actually when that show aired, I pointed at the TV and I'm like, "Hey, Dad, is that what's at Grandma's?" And he's like, "Well, not that one, but yeah, that's what's at Grandma's." So, and then I had my first sighting in '87. It was a roadside sighting where I was out clearing my head on one of my typical midnight drives and happened to be pulling around the corner, and next to a guardrail, for some reason, I thought it was just a big, huge bag of garbage that somebody had, dumped. Back in '87, that wasn't too uncommon. And then it hit me. It looked more like a bear. So I thought I was going to get a, up close encounter with a really big bear, and slow down and turn my high beams on. And it wasn't moving. I thought, all right, I'll play a game of chicken. I'm 16 and working out and, bulletproof. And it got almost close enough to nudge it when I stopped. And then the bear stood up and would have been turned to its right and squared off into my car. And it was tall enough. The eyes were out of the headlights. I could only see most of the chest. And down to my hood, which the knees were even higher than the hood. And it was as wide as my 79 El Camino. The shoulders were fender to fender wide.
That's a big creature.
Yeah, it was. And that's why I have always stayed humble. And even when I'm in a gym with some of the biggest guys around, they don't look very big when you've seen something 8 foot and 600-700 pounds. It's like, you don't impress me, dude. So what happened then was I went to honk that horn because after a few seconds I was done. And looking right at those bright yellow eyes, it was almost like it was looking at me, and something inside me said if I hit that horn, that it was going to be a really bad night for me. So I'm literally sitting there like this. A few more seconds, and then it just turned back to the left and stepped over the guardrail, and it was gone. So that was my first sighting. And then I didn't tell anybody about it because we had some paranormal issues I had told people about and got nothing but teased and everything. So, I sat on that for about 30 years. And then that was when I started getting into the Facebook groups. But I continued to, watch the Monster Quest and Finding Bigfoot and all those shows, trying to learn anything I could get my hands on. And then a friend of mine told me, well, after I'd gotten in good with some of the Facebook people, hey, if you really want a good chance, why don't you go to this place? And course, and when I'm like, yeah, cool, I'll head out there because it was only 40 minutes from where I live. And so I happened to pass a friend of mine in the grocery store. We hadn't seen each other in a while. She's like, "What are you doing?" I said, "Well, actually, I'm going to go look for Bigfoot." And she starts laughing and she's like, "You're off your rocker." So I'm like, this is a walk in the woods, it wasn't very much snow on the ground at the time. So we went out to this area, and like I said, I'm pretty shy. So I didn't want to do any screams or anything to attract attention, or knocks. So I had in my head, well, let's try clapping. So as we're walking down the trail, I would clap a couple times, wouldn't hear anything, Like I said, I'm not expecting to hear anything either. You see people going out for years and nothing happening. But then we get to a point, at that point, it's exactly 3/4 of a mile down the trail. I look up over and there's a bluff, and I'm like, man, that would be a really cool spot where you could just overlook everything. That'd be a prime Bigfoot, hunting blind or something. And I took two steps, and then all of a sudden, but it sounded like two catcher's mitt hitting together and way faster. Stopped me dead in my tracks. I looked at my friend. She looked at me. She's got tears in her eyes. And she's like, well, and I told her, I said, it takes hands to clap, right? And she's like, yeah, I want to go home. I said, yeah, I'm right. Yeah. So we started walking out. And as we walked out, it got a little more sketchy as, you heard a couple tree knocks that were behind us and to the left. And then all of a sudden you would hear a whoop that was beside us and to the right. And we get about 3/4 of the way back, and all of a sudden we can hear the metal gate where I park by start shaking like crazy. And I didn't think we were getting out of there at that point because, I turned around and looked and saw something jump behind the tree. I can't tell you for sure what it was, but it was big and it was black. And we get back to the truck, and the truck is all circled with, the snow's all beat down. I didn't take the time to look to see what it was. It was like just time to go because I knew they were behind us. Something was. And so we left. Took us about 6 months before we got brave again and started going out during the summer and finding like tree structures and partial prints, and then decided to get into the whole idea of gifting. And so we would start with like honey buns and army men and little stuff like that. It would disappear, and then the weird one was had a rock with a friend of mine's name painted on it that we put in one spot, and we started putting peanut butter out by this time. There were 6 different spots where we put peanut butter, and the rock went from one spot where we put peanut butter a mile away and turned up at that next peanut butter spot. So, and the peanut butter jars were disappearing, and we would find them lit completely clean. No marks on the lids, no chew marks, nothing like that. And sometimes the lids would actually be screwed back on. So, I mean, what takes it, and it would be within 24 hours, some of them, and I thought, how hard is it to get a peanut butter jar clean? And, so I came home, tried to wash it, spatula it out, and it's like, what the heck can do this out in nature in 24 hours and leave it? And then we started finding tracks next to the peanut butter. So, we got some 17-inch tracks, 19 and 23 were the bigger ones. So there's one time I was walking, I was by myself and looked up on the hill and saw, how a stump, you get termites in it turns like that red sawdust when it looks. Mm-hmm. But it stood out for some reason. It was like a big stump and it glistened in the sun. And I thought, that's kind of weird. And as soon as I pulled my phone up to take a picture, the stump stood up and jumped over the bluff. So, and he was only about 5 foot at the time, or 6 foot, I should say, because about my height, but shoulders were 50% wider than me. And then we kept going. This kept going on and on for went into 4 years worth of putting 9 jars of peanut butter out a week. So, there were a couple really cool incidents that happened out there. One night in particular was the night that my friend, who was a total disbeliever, went with me on a random ride. And we saw, this is about 10 o'clock at night, saw deer tracks going up the hill. And then there were 2 huge prints beside it. And I'm like, oh, I know what made those. And she's like, all right, let's get out and look. It's okay, we'll do it in the dark. So I shut the lights off on the truck, and we started walking up the hill, and we can hear like little, snaps, but thinking it's just the deer that we saw the tracks for or whatever. And then we hear a big tree break, and it's like, holy crap, what's that? She goes, I don't know, turn the flashlight on. So I turned the flashlight on, and right at the edge of the beam, this 8-foot boy was orange, reddish orange, dark reddish orange. As soon as that light came on, that left arm came up over the face like this, and you could see the hair hanging down. And then it roared that just vibrated our clothes, felt like it just went right through us. So I turned to look at her, put my truck keys in her hand, and I'm like, go, go, go. And whatever it was pacing us out behind us, but she had stage 4 cancer and wasn't moving fast enough for my liking, we'll say. So I'm pushing her through the snow, and we get back to the truck, and I get her in the truck, and my feet hit the icy road, so I fall under the truck. And now I don't know what's going to happen, because I had told her, if I'm not 30 seconds behind you, go. So I'm trying to crawl out from underneath this 1-ton Dodge, can hear something behind me, and then my truck starts. Luckily, I was able to, it's like, am I going to get squished by my truck or beat up by Bigfoot? The options don't look good either way. So luckily got in, backed out, and that was the end of that night. And then we were 4 years into it, and I got a card from the DNR. The DNR actually called me, Michigan Department of Natural Resources, wanting to talk to me. And so I'm not going to put her on blast, but it was really weird because we've got a local office. I mean, within 10 minutes of where I'm at. But they sent somebody from Cadillac, which is an hour and a half away, to come talk to me. And so when we were talking, she's like, what are you doing out there? And, we've got an issue because you're feeding the animals, with the peanut butter. The wildlife's getting close to the houses. The bears are becoming a problem. And I was like, bears? And she's like, yeah, bears. Bears are the main issue here. They're
Bears
coming up.
my butt.
Huh?
Bears my butt.
Exactly. So, and I'm like, it totally confused me at first. And I don't want to put any false ideas of Bravo on my part, because I was scared at that point. I didn't know what could or couldn't happen. And I just asked her, I said, is this being recorded? And she's like, no. And I says, well, I hate, I've been out here going on 4 years, and I've never seen a bear track, bear scat, scratches on trees, or a bear. And I've never seen a bear leave 23-inch footprints, whoop, and then throw rocks at my truck. And she went, excuse me? And I said, no, that's all. I'm, going there. And she goes, well, we want to see your trail cams. And I'm like, well, I don't put trail cams out. And then she said, well, we'd like to see your phone, and no, not unless you got that paper that you need to. There's nothing really on there anyway but pictures of wildlife. And then she asked me, she goes, well, we got a bunch of the jars from out there. She goes, why did you put a different date on the top and bottom? I'm like, what do you mean? And she goes, well, on the top of one jar is this date, and on the bottom of the jar is another date. Which, I didn't do that, but that was how they found the jar. But and that's because I would date the top and bottom, so I would know when I found them, with an initial like pipe or hill or wherever. that way I could match the lids and keep track of, because I did my best to find them all. I didn't want to litter. So, and then after that, she was like, well, you need to go out there and clean everything up. And, they're not going to kick you out. So you can keep going. You just got to quit feeding the bears. I'm like, okay, no problem. So when I went out there, and one day while I was helping cleaning up, one of the neighbors came out that I knew, and she's like, we're so sorry, but I had gotten sick and hadn't been out there for a few weeks. And so apparently during the second week when I was sick and nobody was putting peanut butter out, these people, their security lights were going on and off at night. So they watched the footage, and they were peanut butter jars being thrown from just outside the camera range, bouncing through the yard, is what's setting the video footage off. And then the week after that, what happened was the person down the road who hates me and probably hates me even more because of this happened, heard, I think she was 5 or 6 at the time, woke up and was screaming and walked in, and there was a Bigfoot staring in a bedroom window on the second story. So
That's an eye-opening moment.
Yeah, that was when they called the DNR, and so I still can't apologize enough for doing all that, because I never dreamed that it would affect anybody but me. I thought it was my game, my rules. Well, and everybody warned me it's their rules, but I thought, no, I can do this. I'll just keep it on this side of the road. They won't cross the road, and being naive. So I don't blame those people for being mad at me, and still feel really bad for everything those people endured, because they've been living out there for years. So I think what happened was I stirred the pot by leaving the peanut butter. They'd already had a peaceful coexistence anyway. And then once they weren't getting the food, they were going to get it one way or another.
So do you recommend gifting now?
No. Especially food. I mean, I don't know about CDs and cars and stuff like that, but definitely not food.
I've always thought it was a bad idea. I've never gifted, but I've always thought it was a bad idea because I've seen what happens when people would like feed black bears from their porch.
Yeah.
And then sometimes those bears get to rely on that food, and then the first time it's not there, they've smashed in doors and destroyed houses. I mean, I would never want to get a wild animal to associate me with food.
Yeah, and I guess I was just, I don't know, like I said, naive as to what would or could happen, that it wouldn't be a big deal if I stopped.
Well, you said yourself though, Ron. You didn't really have anybody you could bounce ideas off of. You were kind of out there flying solo, so to speak, and you just did what you thought was a good idea, and you got a lot of good solid data out of it. Regardless,
Yeah.
and I know you feel bad about what happened, but you got a lot of good solid data out of it.
That's the way most of us have learned what we've learned is trial and error.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I've still got the one kicking around with the big fingerprints on it. The peanut butter jar, they're twice as long as mine, and I got some pretty big mitts on me. And then a couple good pictures, all kinds of track pictures, and tree structures up the wazoo, and some audio that's just crazy with the growls and stuff like that. The audio still raises my hair every time I hear it, because I remember being, it just brings me right back to that spot where I was at, and it was a good solid, and stuff is still happening. I'm just trying different things now. Like Marty had mentioned the color blue, and so I started doing topaz, and bought some of that and some other crystals, and I would put one topaz with like 3 or 4 other stones where I was putting peanut butter, and I go back and the topaz is gone, but the rest of the stones are there. in some of these places, it's not going to be like somebody walked by and did it. I mean, one of these is inside a burn barrel, and I put it inside a empty peanut butter jar. And we went back just this last weekend, and the peanut butter jar is there, and so is but the topaz is gone out of a empty burn barrel in the middle of a field.
Yeah, chances
that's
somebody just walking up and, I'm gonna go look see what's in this burn barrel.
Yeah,
exactly.
And I've mentioned on a couple of other podcasts that I decided, a friend of mine passed away, so I decided that I'm going to do a bodybuilding show, because she was always pushing me toward it, and because I already take TRT, that means I can't do a tested show. So there's other supplements that could come into play. And I wonder how, and I've actually already had a couple things to log, so it's been interesting, increased like testosterone. We all know pheromones work, as far as smell. And now you start talking hormones changing those pheromones. What's my reception going to be like out there? Does it change when my body changes? And it's already been a little interesting. If I go by myself, it's been twice now. It's a whole different vibe. It's not that same friendly, you get that being watched and almost like I shouldn't be there.
Mhm.
I got growled at a couple times. I was walking with my headphones and got a rock in the headphone during one of these 2 times. But then the other 2 times I went with my friend who goes with me quite a bit, short little blonde, and everything was perfectly fine. So it's kind of interesting how that may go. Yeah, how that continues to go as I get ready for the show, next year. And before anybody goes crazy, it's basically TRT, because I did try to dabble a little bit. My body won't take it according to the blood work, so we can't go there. That's too big a price to pay.
I had an interesting thought just occurred to me. What if we were to take one of those like Apple AirTags that you can track with your phone and put it inside something blue?
Oh, there you go. I was gonna say, people want me to do that with a peanut butter jar, but it's like, but
It's actually
What
not a
if we
bad
put
idea.
it in something you
kind of
can
a
get them to take?
yeah.
And you don't even have to go out there. Just track it, just to see what their range is.
Yeah, because I want to know there, because like right now, it's 250 acres out there, and it's rifle season here, so they're just gone.
Because
I'd
I'm
like
pretty
to know
sure if
where
you
they
go
go.
out, if you had a GPS tracker and saw exactly where they were, I think if you went there, they would just move to a different area. But if you can study that for a couple of months and watch how they migrate through that area,
Yeah,
I think that would give us a lot of great data.
Yeah.
that's actually a good idea, because then I'm keeping my promise and not feeding them. But
If you want to try it, go for it. I think if we get Doc and Robbie down here, come January, might see if we can try it. I might see if I can get a little tracker.
Yeah. That would actually be a pretty good idea.
yeah,
Leave
because
it in
right now,
Barry and see if it shows up at Joe Bald.
we don't have any snow up here yet, so I could still get back there. We were just back there last week, and that was when we discovered the empty jar with the empty stone out of it. So
Yeah,
I could get out there
if
this
you could
week.
get one of those little tags and put it inside something blue, I think
I like
we
that
might get
idea,
some interesting results.
because there's a pathway that goes down through this valley. I like to call it the meeting spot, because during the summer, about every other week, you go through there and all the leaves are just all tore up with what look like different cells impressions and things like that. So I think that's one of their main ways to get through there without being seen, because it's so deep. You get down there and you can't see it from the road. You can't see it from any. It's on completely opposite side of the hiking trails, and that was where I did a lot of the gifting, was because of that. So that'd be a good place to figure out what I could put it in that they'll take and not, because they like glow in the dark stuff too.
Feel free to run with that idea, because then we can compare notes.
Yeah. I could actually try to feel like a real researcher instead of just a picture taker.
Well, if you, as much time as you spend in the woods, dude, you're a real researcher, believe me.
I'm sloppy though. I don't. If I lost those pictures on my phone, I would have no dates, no nothing.
Make multiple copies.
That's what I need to do, is back it up, learn how to do this stuff. You know, I can fire a PlayStation up, but ask me to copy and paste something on a laptop and forget it.
Kay Bauer says, DA, I'm wondering if they can detect the air tagged signal, whatever it may be. I would be willing to bet they could probably see into the IR spectrum, but I don't know that they would be able to pick up an electronic signal. It'd be a good experiment. You put an air tag in something that's blue and it doesn't disappear.
Yeah.
I think that would be a pretty good indicator they know something ain't right. But if it does disappear, we could probably develop some really good statistical data on where they go, how much time they spend there, where they bed down. You know, it would.
Yeah. Time of day.
Right, exactly. Where they are, what time of day. When they set still for long periods of time, so you know what their sleep schedule is.
Yeah, that's a really good idea.
I think we could get a lot of really good data that way.
I mean, you're going to get good data either way, because if they take it, you're going to get all the stuff you just talked about. If they don't take it, then it's going to show you, they picked up on something that they didn't like about this, something different. You know, so I think I think either way you go, you're going to get some interesting research data.
Yeah,
I could look at getting two and then put one in a blue ball and one in a glow in the dark one, and see if either or both, because they like to glow in the dark balls. Every time I put one out, that disappears, and then when they quit working, they reappear.
So,
sorry, I don't remember. We did have that experience. I think it was April this year, where we went to a new spot. And I know I sent you the pictures, but for anybody who hadn't heard about it, this was on the Manistee River. And a friend of mine, who's the same one who turned me on to this other spot, said, "Hey, you know, I just heard about a guy who, him and his buddy were out fishing late one night, and they heard a fish jump, didn't think anything of it. And then the next time they heard a splash, it was a little closer, figured it was another fish. Well, this time the fish jumped in the boat, but it was a big rock. So, and then they got screamed at from the other side of the river. They were on like a little island in the middle of the river. So they took off, and we went out, I think it was like 2 or 3 days later, so it wasn't very long. And I was trying to get the recorder figured out, and I call blasted the Ohio Howl one time. And when I did that at my area, I got a log in the back of my truck for my trouble. So I, refuse to do call blasting or howls out there now, because, and the more I thought about it, I don't know what they're saying. I could have been calling his wife, telling her to make me a sandwich and your kids are mine or something. And, not appreciate it. And that's where that log came from. But as soon as we get there, what's he do? But a big, long Ohio howl. And I'm like, you son of a... But right away, bang, knock. It's like, okay, well, this could be an interesting day.
Well, but it's interesting that you mentioned that, Brian, that you got when you play the Ohio growl that you get that aggression. What you said the guys that played that, and they got an instant aggressive reaction that they thought a bulldozer was coming through the woods after them. Wasn't it, DA?
Yeah.
So that's, to me, that's curious as to what does the Ohio growl actually mean? Is it a territorial challenge?
Yeah, it's not. I want to play poker. I can tell you that.
Yeah,
it's probably a big alpha proclaiming his territory.
Hey, how y'all doing? Y'all want to come over and have a picnic? Yeah.
No, that's
it's not the universal.
It's more like somebody losing money and they're just not getting a chance to see, where's that $50 or that jar of peanut butter?
Your mama's so ugly.
She's so fat, Thanos had to snap twice. But yeah, so then we start walking through those woods, and it was right off the bat was a feeling like you shouldn't be there. And we saw a couple tree structures, and then we looked down in this valley, and I'd seen something I'd never seen before, and it was big, long trees, but they were stacked. They were horizontal laying, but they were stacked 3 high like a log cabin. And they were in a triangle, but one end of the triangle was open. And my friend does a knock, and then you get a knock, and it sounds like it's coming out of that area. And then he does another knock, and then knocks, does it a third time, same thing. Well, then down in the area, it started knocking kind of rhythmically at first. And I thought, oh, it's a woodpecker. That was a heartbreaking moment. And it got pretty quick. And then all of a sudden there was a huge knock way off in the distance on the left, and another big knock on the right, and a whistle. And then when that whistle happened, my friend goes, oh crap, there's babies down there. I'm like, babies? Baby what? And he goes, there's babies down, baby Bigfoot down there. He's like, we need to leave. We're in trouble. I'm like, what do you mean we? You're the one who did it. But
you got a
and
mouth.
Sure enough, no, I'm guilty by association. And so we start to walk out, and within just a couple steps, within 100 yards, there were 3 of them that I saw. He said 5. I saw 3 for sure. 2 big, more black than brown, and then 1 smaller brown one. The 2 big black ones were together, and then the smaller brown one was way off to the right. He said there were 2 crawling on the ground. He could see their butts. And it was that quick. They had closed quite a couple 100 yards anyway from where it sounded like where the knocks originally came from. And we started, verbally apologizing. Hey, we're sorry. We didn't know about the babies. We're leaving. And so we start walking out, and got maybe 5 or 6 steps and turned around, and they had closed the gap to about 40 yards. And that was when I took some of those pictures that I had sent you, the one, especially the big one, leaning around the tree looking at us. And they kept up the whistling, and you could hear more knocks off into the background. So it was like they were bringing the whole cavalry at that point. And we do get out. Obviously, I'm here, and first thing he does is call one of his friends that's got a website, and he's telling them about it on the phone. And they're still inside the tree line. They didn't leave. Then once they figured out we weren't leaving, then they started breaking more sticks, and you could see them walking back and forth in the tree line. And it was like, this is getting too hairy. It's, you need to hang that phone up. We need to go.
No kidding.
So we left. And then on the way in, we were looking for like tree structures and stuff. We're in separate cars. And then on the way out, it was probably a good 6 or 7 foot log, was 8 or 9 foot in the tree, and it was horizontally perfectly level placed, and there was nothing above it. It's all open tree area. So I took a couple pictures of it and sent it to a couple people, and I said, what's this mean? He goes, this means don't come back. He said, basically what they're doing is, we see how big you are. This is how big we are. If you come back, you're next in the tree. So that was probably the scariest one so far, because I had never seen more than one at a time. And then all of a sudden you get three that, I mean, they were
That
big
would be
boys.
a brown pants moment for sure.
Yeah.
Oh,
You know,
it's-
and
I've gone
daylight.
into a few places where I just had that overwhelming feeling like I should not be there, but I've never been basically ran out of an area like that.
Yeah, it was intense. There were nightmares about that one for a little while. Still haven't. I did go back one time during the day, but I didn't get very far. You know, I went back because there were a couple of tree X's that were real close to the parking area, and I wanted pictures of them really bad, so I went and got those. But you know, I got about 25, 30 feet in, and everything just went instantly dead quiet again. So it was like, yeah, no. Oh, that was back in April. Unfortunately, I had a whole bunch of health issues, so I really didn't get out a whole lot to get too much stuff until the last couple of weeks we've been out. And like I said, that was when we figured out the whole Blue Rock thing.
Yeah. I've been dealing with quite a bit of health issues this year myself, so I haven't been out as much as I would have liked, but we still got out quite a bit.
Oh, it was a perfect summer for it too up here. I mean, it was not too hot. You know, it was mid 80s, high 80s at the most, all summer long, barely any rain. But between a heart attack and gallbladder and pancreas, it was like limited, especially when where I go, it's, you know, a couple miles downhill. So downhill's not the hard part. It's coming back up to.
That's a fact.
My first time coming back up was probably took me an hour to come back up, where it take me a half hour to go normally. So
would you think it was safe to say that they're fairly aggressive around you?
not at first. I think it depends on the mood, because like that night that I got escorted out with my friend Shauna, I mean, I would have been. We saw the deer tracks, so what I'm thinking happened is that deer was just over the hill somewhere. So if somebody came in my house with a 2000 lumen flashlight and put it in my face, I'd be kind of angry too while I was having dinner with the kids. So I think that was part of it. The last one I just talked about was the fact that there were babies involved.
Yeah.
And that's a totally new area for me. I had not been out there yet. And the last two times out there, like I said, my test levels were elevated a little bit. I think that changes how you smell, and what happens first. I know everybody says they sense when you're there, but what happens first? Do they sense you're there and then smell you, or is it vice versa?
Yeah, it's hard to say, but I definitely think not only can they sense when you're in the area, I think they can also sense your intent.
Yeah, and that's what I'm hoping, because I'm hoping intent comes first, because the only intentions I have are just to try to interact, and it's been that way for 4 years. So, and then, because there have been really good, amazing interactions that I just can't explain. They've returned things I've lost. I had a limited edition, as goofy as it sounds, Tomb Raider flashlight. And I was out, we were putting stuff out, and it got close to dark, so I didn't really pay attention. And we went back to the truck, and I went to grab that flashlight, and it'd fallen out somewhere. And we had covered a couple miles. It was like, I'll never see that again. And it was a month later, I got out of my truck where I park all the time, and that flashlight was leaning up against a tree next to where I park. And then one night I went out, a friend of mine had passed away, and, it sounded like a real man here. Was crying my eyes out and listening to some music because that's where I feel most at peace, is out in those woods.
I'm exactly the same way.
And so I went out and sat and was crying, and all of a sudden you hear this long moan. It wasn't a howl and it wasn't a whoop. It was in between the two. And it happened 3 times. So it was almost like whatever was out there was feeling my pain. You know, I know I'm putting human emotions on something that we don't know what it is, but that's what it felt like. It was
You know, that's not a big leap of the imagination. I mean, how often have you been sitting in your house and having a bad day and your dog comes over to you? Animals can sense your emotional state.
yeah. Yep. So and then what happened was I lost my dog clicker that I use out there. I left that out there that night. And the next weekend I came back, there's a cattle gate that you go through to get down to where I go. It was tied to that cattle gate, the dog clicker. So it was like,
Well, it sounds like they know who you are, even if they're not necessarily wanting to have a up close and personal interaction. They're aware of you and know who you are.
yeah, I think so. And that was why when I say aggressive, I think it's just under the circumstance. It's like anything else. You can have the nicest guy on a bad day be a real pistol to deal with.
I mean, it's no different than, you've watched nature shows where these people, study a wolf pack for months and months and months, and then the wolves will start accept them and, even come around them, and they're like an honorary member of the pack. And same thing with, people who study gorillas and chimps and things like that. It's no different. I mean, if you're there constantly and they get your scent and they know you, the more you're there, the more they're going to know you, the more they're going to be comfortable with you, and they're going to accept you at some point. I mean, that
May not accept you into the pack, but at least accept your presence and go about their lives. Now, a different thing shows up, and that changes everything again.
But that just goes to prove what we've talked about before, DA, that that's behavior that we've seen in the known animal kingdom, and Brian's just proved that it happens there too. I mean, I think that just goes to prove some of the theories we've been talking about.
Brian, what you were talking about, feeling at peace in the woods, there's actually a word for that. It's nemophilist. It's a haunter of the woods, one who loves the forest and its beauty and solitude.
Oh, because
it's actually
I do my best thinking of it. Used to be the beach, Alberta, Frankfurt Beach on the lighthouse, but once I got involved in these woods and everything that happened, you would think with 800-pound imaginary monkeys running around, you wouldn't be at peace in the woods, but that's where I do. I feel sick. I feel just at ease. That's the only place I can literally feel like my mind shuts down.
I think for the most part, you get what you bring. And when you go out in the woods, if you go out there with evil intent, you're probably not going to have a good time of it. Even though we go armed when we go, none of us have ever had the intent, and we're going out here to shoot one of these things. Our armament are strictly for self-defense. We're not out there, looking to put one down and take it back to civilization and show it off. And I think that kind of carries through, because I know of groups that claim that their whole goal is to go out and bring one down, and they either get no reaction whatsoever or a bad reaction. And there's generally not any middle ground with it.
Yep.
Yeah, I still don't understand that whole thing about needing to bring one down. I mean, I guess I can understand.
Robbie and I have made the argument on a number of occasions. Robbie and I have made the argument on a number of occasions that, in our careers, we've seen men go to prison for life on eyewitness testimony. Yet when it comes to Bigfoot or Dogman, eyewitness testimony just gets chucked out the window.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there's to me enough credible evidence and credible sighting reports to make the case for the existence of Bigfoot. But when it comes to this subject, though, mainstream science and most people just cannot accept eyewitness testimony.
And I touched on that last week. I did a show on my Hidden Realms on Outlaw Network, Bigfoot Outlaw Network, and touched about the fact that I think not only is science reactive to certain things, but I think it's money driven. you know, and if the whole Bigfoot thing comes out, you know, are we going to have that? What kind of owl was it in California where they shut down logging for
Oh, that was up in Oregon. It was the gray owl.
Oregon?
Yep.
You know, what's going to happen when they find out Bigfoot's all over, you know, 50 states, 49?
Well, I think they've known. I think our government's known for a long time.
That's why we've speculated that about the national forests or national parks and things like that. That's why nothing ever changes with that, because how many resources are in 88 million acres that could be tapped into, exploited, whatever you want to call it, but never even don't even hear a whisper of that.
Yeah, you guys were the first ones that put that out there that I had heard. You know, maybe it was Teddy Roosevelt's way, either protecting them for us or protecting them without actually having to say it. So, I mean, that actually rings like, yeah, that makes a lot of sense if you really, you know, think about it.
And not for nothing, we were talking about that the other day. You said you thought we were the first ones to put that out, which I think we were too. I saw a podcast the other day. I told DA about it. I said, "Hey, have you ever heard of this web or this YouTube channel?" He's like, "No." I said, "Well, what was it? 2 weeks ago, I think."
Yeah,
I said, 2 weeks ago, they put a show out called "Did Teddy Roosevelt really shoot a Bigfoot or see a Bigfoot or something like that?" Like 17,000 views on this video, and we've done like 10 shows, like 4 or 5 shows directly dedicated to that, and probably a total of 10 that we've gone into the theory. And I'm like,
it wasn't 2 weeks after when I saw your show about it that I saw somebody else put out a whole 30-minute video on, you know, this is what's really happening in the national forest now.
Yeah.
They were put there in place to protect. And I thought, but I'm like, I think that I had never heard that until you guys had spoke it. And then all of a sudden, a few weeks later, it was like, seemed to be popping up on every few weeks.
Well, same thing when our theory about the maps, the overlapping of the maps. We've been talking about that for probably about a year. And 6 months ago, it was about 6 months ago, this lady on YouTube called the Map Lady, all of a sudden she does a video that's got over 1 million views with the exact same thing that we've been talking about. She overlays the 411, the cave system, and the Bigfoot thing on there. And I'm like, we're trendsetters, apparently.
Apparently. We just don't get the views that they get.
You're not getting the credit for it. That's the problem. I hate when that happens, seeing that to people, you know. It's like, you know, I do a show with Kenny Thibodeau on Midnight Lycanthropy, and, you know, he talks about, in a way it makes sense, you know, about Dogman possibly being some sort of offshoot of the cave hyena. And I mean, the body structure makes sense because, you know, from what I've seen, I've never seen a Dogman, but, you know, I know people that it was funny because actually they just got done filming a movie up here, and I just watched the video that used the famous Gable film. You know, Dogman.
Yeah, didn't that
I know one of the 3 guys. I know one of the 3 guys that did that.
Is that the one where the thing's moving kind of sideways and
jumps with the back and forth, headed toward the cameraman, and makes you think you ate the cameraman? Yeah, so
that was actually well done.
And you know, it was so crazy simplistic because, like, I know one of the 3 guys that once Monster Quest came to town was why they had to come out and admit this is what, and the whole intention was just to bring attention to Dogman because it was on that 7th year, every 10 years cycle. So that was kind of funny to see that pop up, and still claiming to, even though he came out on TV, I knew about 3 weeks before it came out on TV. Because I trained Jack O'Malley a little bit, and he was partners with Steve Cook from WTCM. And Steve is the one who I forget the guy's name that actually did the movie, but came to Steve with the movie. They came up with the backstory that way, and
The way they did it was pretty
when
smart. They had all old vehicles in it.
those
Yeah, it was
70s snowmobile
for a hoax,
Scorpion,
it's very well done.
Yeah.
and that's why they finally admitted it, because they didn't want people to think they were hoaxing for money. So,
Well, even the way that they dressed the creature up and had or whoever, whichever one did that, and the movement. I mean, I don't think anybody would have got that if they hadn't, or obviously if they'd come in and really in-depth studied it, they would have. But just the normal average person that watched that, it was hard to debunk. Even after I knew that they came out and said it was a hoax, you still watch it and it's like, man, I can't believe that's fake. That just looks really good.
yeah,
Well,
and
Patty, to answer your question, yes, I do think a Gugway is a type of Bigfoot.
Yep,
that's just my opinion.
mine too.
those are the nasty ones, right?
The ones that kind of have like a mandrill-like snake.
Yeah, almost. I think get mistaken for Dogman.
Have you heard that howl that was recorded near Robbie's house?
No.
Here, I'll play it for you. Get your speakers turned up?
We get to watch another reaction, DA.
Yeah. This was recorded like, 10 miles from your place?
Yeah, 10, 15, something like that.
Here we go.
What?
Did you see Jerry's reaction last night?
No, I didn't.
He was like,
Jerry turned around, he goes, "What the?"
This was the actual video, but that was the isolated audio. Here's the actual video. I was recorded off of somebody's porch camera, just outside of Easley, South Carolina.
Pickens.
Okay.
Yeah, it was up in Sunset, which is up in the upper part of the county.
That's a brown note moment right there.
But I mean, you can hear the stuff that's close to that microphone, but that whatever that is has got a set of lungs.
Yeah,
because it's a good ways off.
And the echo to it, it wasn't just like a straight bird call, and the echo like bellow to it, and the way it worked, like
2 in the morning, somewhere around 2:30 in the morning.
Every time we play that, at least somebody in the chat mentions that some people's dogs have like ran out of the room. Other people's cats have freaked out. Whenever we play that, somebody has a weird response from their animals.
Oh, I can see why. You got a weird response from me. It's like one I want to keep hearing because that's crazy. Just because I felt that, pretty close.
Mm-hmm.
Just a raw aggression
that's one
mine
of
was. Mine was just straight out. Like I'm pissed.
If that's one of those, if you were out in the woods at 2 o'clock in the morning and you heard that,
no.
And Vicky, my personal opinion, I think that's probably what it was. I think it's a Dogman because there's a lot of other tie-in stuff, and we talked about that before. What was it, a year ago that I found the track out behind my dad's? About a year ago, I found about a 7-inch, give or take, about a 7-inch wolf track out behind my dad's house, which is pretty big for a wolf. Because I asked Ken Gerhardt one time, I said, "Ken, what's the biggest wolf track you've ever seen in the wild?" He said about 4.5 inches, and I showed him the picture of that one, and he was like,
"Bear track."
Yeah, that's the bear track. The other one with the tape measuring is the one is the wolf track.
I don't think I've still got that one.
See, I used to raise wolf hybrids, so
7
for 5 or 6 years,
7 inches, or let's say between 6 and 7.5, because it was, it was big.
yeah. My 140-pound male didn't leave prints that big.
So there's that. Then you got that howl. Then there's a little state park, or not state park, but it's state-owned property called the Horse Pasture, which is right in that same general area. A woman went missing a couple months ago up there. They found one of her dogs. They didn't find her, and they hadn't found her other dog, but they found one of the dogs and some of her other stuff. And this is all right within probably a 20-mile radius of each other. So,
and 20 miles is nothing for an animal that big.
no.
Yeah.
I mean,
No, our
that's a-
wolf hybrids were 200-mile radius, or 50-mile radius. I'm sorry.
that's a 30-minute walk for something like that, probably. A trot, that's a stroll. That's out, you know.
Yeah, anything within 50 miles for that dog was his, as far as he was concerned. So 20
Hey,
miles. Was it.
I meant to mention this, but I completely forgot it till Steve said it. I was talking to Steve Payton the other day, and his mother, who lives here in Missouri, heard what sounded like the samurai chatter behind her house a couple weeks ago.
Oh, Bigfoot.
Up close to her back porch.
That's pretty much what Noah heard on the parabolic that night.
Yeah, he heard very similar to the samurai chatter on the parabolic.
I got a little bit of it on a recorder, but nothing like, the Sierra sounds or anything like that. It's off in the distance, and it's about I left the recorder at 10, and by midnight you can start hearing something walking around, and then you start hearing like sticks banging and cracking, but it stays in one area. It was almost like they were horsing around, or tree, I don't know, tree structure, whatever, but whatever it was, they were standing there banging on wood. And then all of a sudden you can hear a little, and then all of a sudden really loud, like, and then it tones back down. It was almost like he hit its hand with a hammer, if you can imagine. It was like somebody said something, and then it goes back to the wood banging, and it went on for about 4 hours. And then you can hear something walk down toward the recorder. Something scratches. You can hear it scratch the microphone, and then you can hear it walk away.
David Smith and Jay Freiberg were wanting us to elaborate on samurai chatter. The first known example of quote unquote the samurai chatter was picked up on what's called the Sierra Sounds by Ron Moorhead back in the early 70s, and it's a recording that they believe is of a group of Bigfoot having some sort of conversation. The recordings that Ron made were analyzed by a Navy cryptolinguist using a supercomputer, and it discovered that it was a language. It had no idea what it was saying, but it had all the earmarks of being a language. And the reason why they firmly believe that it's Bigfoot is when they analyzed the actual audio recording, it had peaks and valleys both above and below what the human voice range is capable of. So there was no way it was a human that was having that conversation. And it sounded like the old Chopsaki films, and I don't want to do it because it get me canceled because it sound like I'm making fun of somebody, but it sounded like the old Chopsaki films, like the old martial arts films that the way they would banter back on Saturday afternoons. Right, it sounded like that. Yeah, and that, so they dubbed it the samurai chatter. But more and more researchers in other parts of the country are starting to hear it. In fact, it's even been recorded here in Missouri out in the Mark Twain. And now, Steve's mother heard it behind her house. I would love to put an audio recorder out there, Steve. Miss Lene says it's Ghibli.
I mean,
when you guys do recorders, have you ever had them tampered with?
I've never had one messed with.
No.
Usually, if I leave something, it just gets avoided. They don't go anywhere near it. I guess it's either a scent thing or they're able to detect something unusual in the area. But every time I've left any kind of, to try to get any kind of audio recording, it just, all I hear is normal wood sounds.
Yeah, I had, I think I put a recorder out 6 times, and twice. Once I wanted to have a recorder fairly close to each other so that, one would pick up, verify what the other one was picking up. And what was really weird was I went back the next day to get it, and one recorder was shut off after 24 minutes after I had left, and the other recorder recorded the whole night. So you could hear on the other recorder something coming through the brush. You don't hear any grunting or breathing or anything, and then something leaving through the brush, and that's all you hear.
Mhm.
So it was, and then one recorder that it recorded for 12 minutes, and then the batteries went dead.
I
Even though
got
they
a
were
lot
charged.
of examples of that with brand new batteries going dead quickly.
Yeah, so it's, I guess because to me, it's like the fitness world. There's so much coming out and unknown about what's happening, and to be able to go out and experience it myself is a blessing. That's why I keep going back when I can get a little more.
Well, it's like I watched a video today, and they were talking. The guy was talking about how he was debunking the debunkers who were saying, the people who were saying the Patterson-Gimlin film was faked, and he said how he debunked it was, sorry, that was, I moved something under my desk. How he debunked it was like, okay, there's three main things that people have said prior in prior years is the reason that the video is fake. Number one, you got how you pronounce his name? Is it not Geronimo, but Hieronymus or whatever his name is? The guy,
Bob Hieronymus.
Bob Hieronymus, who said he was in the suit, and he kind of mimicked the walk and all that stuff. And then there's the guy who come forward and said he sold the suit. And then there's the guy who wrote the book and said that Patterson's wife sewed the suit from. He said, well, there you go. He said, there's three contradictory things. Each one of those contradict himself. If Hieronymus was in the suit, then he would know what the suit was made of. But he's contradicted himself 3 or 4 times. So one time it was made out of horsehide, another time it was made out of synthetic, and blah, blah, blah. If Ed Peake made the suit, then that means Patterson's wife didn't sew it. But yet when he tried to remake it, quote unquote, this suit that he made, it was, comic
That was
level.
the beauty.
Yeah, comic level compared to what the actual video was. And then they even put Hieronymus in the suit, and it was so far off. So it's just the thing of the more technology comes out, sometimes it seems like people just kind of, oh, it's technology. I throw technology. Sometimes you can't beat the old stuff like just a regular old recorder or something like this. Sometimes just good old fashioned getting out there and listening or putting down a recorder is some of the best stuff that you can get. Getting out there with a good, was it 8mm that they had?
Yeah, those 8mm.
Just I mean, think about
Little cranked ones.
But you can't do the AI generation things with something like that. That it is what it is. What's on that film is on that film. You can't go in there and alter that. So sometimes people, I think, get a little too, oh, well, look what we can do with this, which is great. But
You couldn't do it back then.
Yeah, and some of that old stuff is the best stuff in my opinion.
That's what I've been thinking of, trying to get a Polaroid camera and go back. So there's no, you don't get the pixelation, whatever's there is there at the time. Instead of getting, to me, I think that would cut down on the blob squatch pictures, maybe.
I think it would. I think you're right about that. I think, using digital cameras, you don't get as crisp images because it does tend to pixelate.
And that's the whole thing. And I think that's what this guy's point was, you have the number one guy in at the time, like we talked about, the guy who was over the Planet of the Apes, who says, if this technology had existed back then, this is what you would have seen in the movie. So you got that guy saying that, and then he had quotes from Dr. Meldrum, Rick Munns, who's another special effects genius, and Grover Krantz. He said, so you're going to tell me that Gimlin, Patterson, and Hieronymus are smarter than those three people, who two of them,
with a multi-million-dollar budget.
Yeah, exactly. But it is Dr. Meldrum and Dr. Krantz, that was what they did, is primate locomotion, the study of how apes walk. To fool those two people, what would it have to, and Dr. Meldrum even said it, this would have to be the most successful, well put together. It's just like we've said before. How many people and how much money and how much effort would it take if this was a hoax, if Bigfoot was a hoax? How much would that take? That would be the biggest corporation in the world, is hoaxing Bigfoot.
Yeah,
Especially
and
since it's a worldwide phenomenon. It's
Yeah.
not just localized to the U.S.
And I think if more people would think of it in those terms of, okay, if this is a hoax, what would it take to perpetuate this thing from the time that we've been talking about this stuff to now, to keep it, you know, how
Dating
many,
back to the 1400s, even farther.
just think of the number of people, the sheer number of people that a company like that would have to employ just to go put footprints somewhere that somebody might come across them. And
yeah,
I think
exactly.
if people would start thinking about stuff like that in those terms of the logistics of what it would, you know, if this was a localized thing in one area of the world, yeah. But when you see these, like you said, DA, it's worldwide phenomenon. That would be a global corporation that was operating on a multi-billion-dollar budget a year to keep something like that going.
It was operating on a global scale for the last 1,000 years.
Exactly.
Every Native American tribe on North America has a different name for the same creature, and those date back hundreds of years.
And I've brought some of the people that want to argue with me about it. I've brought that point to them, and they're like, I said, argue that point, and they're like, I'm like, it would take way more effort to hoax this thing than it would be to say, okay, it's a possibility that this thing lives.
River's got a question for Brian. I think she wants to know if you've seen what they refer to as the little people. They report seeing them in lots of places. There have even been reports in Oklahoma. I've never seen one, but
no, I've seen a younger Sasquatch, but I've never seen one of the little people. I got a picture of a baby Squatch track, and it was actually pretty funny because I wanted to be sure it wasn't like a bear track or something. So I sent the baby picture of the baby track next to mine. And, you know, it's half the size of my size 15. So I sent it to my friend. And he goes, yeah, that's really cool. That's, you know, that looks legit. That looks like a baby Sasquatch. He says, but what about the big one? I'm like, big one? And he's like, yeah, the big track. And he sends it back to me. And all my, powers of observance, I had put my heel in the heel of apparently Mama's track, because when you look at the picture about 4 inches above my foot, you can see all 5 toes. So I didn't even see it. You know, he's like, oh, so Bigfoot tracker you are. And I'm like,
well, that happens. I mean, you get fixated on one piece of evidence, you can look right over all kinds of stuff.
yeah, it was bad. I'm still living that one down. You know, but back to the Patterson film too. The other thing people don't think about is the footsteps, you know, the tracks and the weight it took to make those tracks. I mean, didn't they
And the
say
depth of those tracks,
they said it had to be like 700 pounds, right?
at least.
I mean, Andre the Giant was 7 foot 500 pounds. So you got somebody that is 200 pounds heavier than Andre. You know, and according to everything I've seen, Patty was close to 7 foot, right in that 7 foot mark. But look how agile she is compared to, and 200 pounds heavier. How many people like that? I've seen my 600 pound life, but none of those people are out in the woods making Bigfoot tracks.
No.
They can't walk across the living room, let alone go hiking in the deep
No,
woods.
you know, put a 48 or 52-inch stride on them, and it's like,
well, I mean, look at the Big Show, Paul White. I mean,
yeah,
as far as modern times go, he's probably billed correctly as the largest athlete in professional sports. I would venture to say, height and weight combined, he's probably. I mean, there's probably people taller than him, and there's probably people heavier than him, but proportionally, I think he's probably the biggest. He's what, 7'2", I think,
Something like that.
something like that, and he's 550 ish.
Mhm.
So he is obviously, or in his prime, he was a lot more athletic. He's not now. He's I think a year older than me, so he's 51, somewhere around in there. So he don't do his drop kicks and things like he used to, but still, this thing was way more agile than he is.
Yeah,
And
and put another
it's
200
bigger.
pounds up.
Yeah, and that's what I say is bigger. So I mean, how do you draw that comparison? Oh, that's a person in a suit.
That's what I mean.
Oh yeah, look at it. Look at the holes in the mask. What? I watched or was reading a bunch of comments, and some guy was like, "It always cracks me up when they enhance this because you can see the holes in the mask." I'm like, so I even take back. I said, "What holes are you talking about?" I don't see what you're talking about. And he answered back, said, "Right above, right below the eyebrows." And I'm like, "Oh, you mean the eyes?"
The eye sockets with the iris staring at you.
Yeah, those holes. Yeah, I got you. I see those holes every time they show the video.
I use those at work when I hold my pen up and go like this, you know. Yeah, I don't. Some people will just are willing to bury themselves on a hill with.
It's
Just no
easier to
argument
make those.
whatsoever. And that's when the insults come out.
It's
You
easy
know?
to make those easier to make those claims that it was all a hoax than admit that there's a chance that thing's out there.
Well, yeah, because then if you admit that's real, now you got to look at everything else. If one's
What else
real,
have we been told isn't real but actually is?
yep,
Well, I think that's a lot of the reason that people don't want to admit this is because once they admit it, it's like you said, DA, what else is out there? If this is real, what else can be real? And it's just like kind of the reverse of that. Like I told you, I've had people they're like, yeah, I believe in ghosts and aliens and things like that, but Bigfoot, that's impossible. How can you have the mindset that okay, little green men from Mars are real, but an undiscovered species of North American great ape? No, that's too much of a stretch for me. What kind of asinine brain mindset do you have to to think that way?
Right.
yeah, it's people drawing lines in the sands. It was like,
Yeah,
I quit doing that
like
quite a long time ago.
that's the hill you want to die on, huh?
Yeah.
The ghosts and aliens exist, but Bigfoot is not. That's too much of a stretch. That's the hill you want to die on. Okay, have
Yeah,
fun up there
that's
by yourself.
Even Johnny Cochran couldn't get off the fact that Bigfoot's real. So,
Oh, Johnny.
I mean, you
Dave
just
Bauer says they also said UFOs aren't real, but now they're admitting in the Senate the hearings were real.
Yep.
yeah, and and I went through a little bit on that too. The fact that science fiction back in the day all of a sudden is just regular science now. Look at warp drives and light speed, and look at lasers. I mean, the work you can do with that compared to Han Solo's blaster back in the day.
Yeah.
They know way more than what they're willing to share.
Oh, absolutely.
And it makes you wonder why. Is it because they think is it like Men in Black said, where the public's too stupid?
Well,
Or is it?
I do agree with what Tommy Lee Jones said in that. People as individuals, when you meet people are smart, but people as a group are stupid. They get scared like cattle. I mean, you get a large number of people. Look how quickly people walking down the street can turn into a riot.
Yep.
Yeah.
Situations can destabilize, and when people get in large groups, that herd mentality kicks in, and dangerous things happen when there are large groups of people. I mean, how many times have you heard about people just going to like a concert and somebody getting, the crowd rushes the stage and 2 or 3 people get trampled to death. And that's just at a concert.
Yeah, mosh pits get going and get out of hand, and now all of a sudden you're going to tell the public that everywhere you go in the national woods, there's a.
But you would have if the government said tomorrow, Bigfoot's out there, it's real, and we've known about it for a long time. If they said that tomorrow, you'd get 2 reactions. Well, you'd get 3 reactions. You'd get those of us that would be like, "See, I told you." Then you'd have other people that would be like, "You know what? I'm never stepping foot in the woods again." And then you'd have that group of people like, "Hey, I'm going to be the first one that bags one of these things." Yeah.
That's the group that scares me the most.
Yeah.
Because how many people are going to get hurt because somebody's trying to bag one?
Brian Rivers got a question for you.
Where do I reckon the booger bones are? Everyone's got to go. I think they've been a couple things. I think they've been buried. Some of them. I think they get scattered very quickly. So there's a lot of I've seen a lot of shows where they show how quickly a dead deer disappear.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah.
We've got millions of black bears in Michigan, and I've never found a bear bone. So if there's only a couple hundred spotches in Michigan, what are the odds that? Or misidentification? Hey, it's the song. It looks human. So.
Well, anytime we found giant bones, and we've talked about this, we've done shows just on giant bones. There have been thousands of documented cases of giant bones being found, the most famous of which are the giant bones found in Lovelock Cave, Nevada. They were actually on display in a museum in Lovelock, Nevada. But every time one of these giant bones are discovered, the Smithsonian gets involved, and then they disappear.
Yeah. Yeah, for somebody who's so good at tracking history, they sure do lose a lot of it.
There was a guy, I was watching a documentary, and there was a guy, and I was going to want to say it was in Minnesota, who plowed up giant bones in his field and called the local university, and they came in, examined the site, reburied the bones, and told him by law he was not allowed to dig there ever again.
They were reclassified his land as historical site or something?
They said it was Native American, and the skeletons were in excess of 7 feet tall.
That showed Chasing Giants. Yeah. All of a sudden they start getting close, and then next thing you know, they're canceled.
Yep. Yeah, they'll allow you to go on there and make all kinds of speculation, but you start finding evidence.
I just wonder if you worked in a municipality there. You know how you had a record rotation?
Mm-hmm.
I just wonder if there's a rotation between the Smithsonian and the Vatican on who gets to go pick up the bones this month. Who's on rotation this month? That's the Vatican.
Yeah. Kay Bowers said DA update on the disappeared deer. No smell of death in the area. Either I missed it or something got it. He had a deer kill go missing. And there was significant enough blood that it should not have gotten far. Yet there's no sign of the deer, no more blood, and there's no, he's gone through the area and not found any smell of a dead carcass. So I honestly believe something took his deer. Yeah,
I think they've learned now that bang to them means
the dinner
bell.
I've lost deer that way.
And
I wonder how often it happens, and hunters just write it off as, I probably didn't hit him as bad as I thought I did.
Yeah.
Well, I think that goes with what I was talking about. I think it was Saturday night that I brought that point up about, if you're one of the people that are not open to the fact that these creatures exist, and you see something big, and we're talking about them moving a lot of times bipedally or quadrupedally on all fours, when people see that, if they're so close-minded that they do not believe this, automatically their brain's going to say black bear. So how many of those sightings is what we're talking about? How many of those sightings that people just say, "Oh, I saw a black bear down here," could have been something other than a black bear? But I think it's the same thing. I think, if your mind is so closed to the fact that these things exist, that there are probably hundreds of thousands of more sightings that would come in a year, just if people were just more open to stuff like that.
Was it last night on the show you were on, Robbie? Was that when they were talking about the lady that said she saw a black bear take 2 of her chickens and walk off with them in its hands?
Yep. Yeah, a black bear walked off with 2 chickens, one in each hand. I'm like, never seen that before. Yeah, new one on me.
That was when I was working bartender for my mom. At the her restaurant bar was within a mile of that Bigfoot encounter that I was telling you about, the last one. And when I was working down there, then there was a whole bunch of rumors about, Bigfoot being about, and they had a guy, what was his name?
Yeah, we got an invitation after you cut off Rivers. Wants us to come down under.
If you ever make it down that way,
oh man,
take you up on it.
I would be there in a heartbeat for the Yowie. But Henry, anyway, he was in and he got lit as usual. And he started sounding off about the fact that the night before he shot a Bigfoot, which perked my ears up. I'm like, what? Get out of here. And he's like, no. He said, I hear all this ruckus and my pigs start squealing. And then I go out and he said, there goes Bigfoot with a pig under each arm and stepping over my fence. He said, I grabbed my shotgun, but all I had was birdshot in it. So I shot. And as I shot in it, I'm saying, drop the pigs, you can have the wife.
Well, that's exactly like the story.
Pig under each arm and got him.
The story in Legend of Boggy Creek. There's a guy who lost 2 pigs just like that. He said he had two 250-pound hogs, and he goes out the next morning, and all he sees is where the thing stepped on the fence. And he said the only thing he can think is it had a hog under each arm.
Yeah, so pig under each arm and probably a butt full of birdshot. But
and then there's the famous "You're chicky." Remember that one, DA?
Yeah, that happened in California, and I can't remember the incident. They were calling him something else. They weren't calling him Bigfoot. For the life of me, I can't think of what it was. But this guy had these creatures coming around his property, and he was calling them something else. They never actually flat out called him Bigfoot, but he would go out to feed his chickens, and he'd yell, "Hey, here, chickie, here, chickie," when he'd go out with the chicken feed. And stepped out on his porch one night, and here's this guttural voice from the woods go, "Here, chickie, here, chickie."
He wanted the big chickie.
I'd be like, would you look at the time? Nope.
Like, he can have them chickens.
Yep. Yeah, I had a guy last year that he's been hunting in Kalkaska, and he and I talk quite a bit. He's prison guard and was, what do they call that response team in the prisons?
The corrections emergency response team.
Yeah, there you go. He was on that. We were talking, and he always thought it was kind of cool. And then last year he was out rifle season, and he came in and he says, "Well, I got to find a new deer area." I'm like, "What are you talking about?" And he said, "I was out there in my blind, and all of a sudden seen this great big guy dressed in brown, start walking in front of me." I'm like, "Hey, you big dumb son of a bitch. You trying to get shot?" He said it turned around, looked at me, growled, and then continued walking. He says, "I'm not going back." So
I talked to a cop here in Missouri at a training event, and he told me that he went out to his deer stand. He said deer stand was pretty high up on the tree. And he went out and got in his deer stand, and he had one of those soft-sided cooler lunch boxes, and he'd wrap the strap around his leg so he wouldn't drop it. He dozed off in his deer stand, and he said he came to with something tugging on that lunch box. He said, "I opened my eyes and looked down." He said this thing's head was about level with my knee, and it was tugging on that lunch strap. that lunchbox. I said, what'd you do? He said, I gave him the damn lunchbox. He said, I wasn't dying over a couple bologna sandwiches. I said, well, then what happened? He said, well, once I knew it was good and gone, I climbed down out of that damn deer stand and I went home. He said, next day I sold my deer equipment. If you want that deer stand, I'll tell you where it's at, but I ain't going back out there.
I found one twisted in the area. A guy had a bow stand up the tree, and he had a couple trail cams. And I'm like, well, crap, I'm gonna have to avoid this, then the next week or so. And I went back out the next week, and I saw the deer stand on the ground, and it was twisted.
I've heard a few stories from hunters
Like
that go out
just
to the
like
deer
something took
stand.
both hands and twisted it like you would twist the towel. And I'm like, holy crap, what the heck happened here? And then when I went back out the next week, the deer stand was gone, and the trail cams were gone. I thought, oh man, I wish I could have seen what was on that trail cam, because it was pointed right at the deer stand. So whatever, and there hasn't been a deer stand since, or
I
trail
talked to an
cam.
old boy down by Eminence, Missouri, who put one of those climbing stands in a tree, and when he went back out there to hunt a few weeks later, he said that it looked like somebody had yanked it off the tree and beat it against the tree until it came apart.
They get their point across. There's no doubt about it. If they don't want you there, they let you know it in a hurry.
Yeah.
Just think of the power that takes. That's what always amazes me. See some of the way these trees are bent and not broken. How that's achieved, I don't know. And then
the first time that it was the first time we found the PVC pipe, wasn't it, DA and Joe Bald?
Yeah.
First time that I went to Missouri and was hanging out with DA and Noah, we went down to Joe Bald, and DA was telling me, "Hey, man, they're building a dock down here." He said, "Last time me and Noah was down here, they were building. We get down there and it's gone." DA's like, "This thing was here. It was right here. It was like here the week before this. It's gone." So we started looking around where it was at, and we're finding pieces, of things here and there. Well, I found a 2-inch piece of PVC, which is about that big around, the thick diameter stuff. Found the 2 pieces of it, and you could tell where it was broke, but it was twisted. It was a spiral fracture where something had grabbed one end and twisted oppositely, because you could put it back together and there'd still be a crack, and you could turn the ends opposite ways and it would fit back together. You could, the force it takes to break a piece of PVC that way.
Tremendous amount.
No, I can't imagine. I went out and I got pictures of because there was a cattle gate that I talked about earlier, and I go out one day, and right at the corner, you can see 2 big impressions in the gravel, peat gravel, and then on the end corner, it's bent straight down and back up, and 2 more steps on the other side of the gate, like something had just gone up and put its weight down, and stepped over it. And I got on that thing and I tried jumping up and down, and I was 300 pounds at the time, and I couldn't even get a flex out of it.
There's down the old Joe Bald campground. There's 2 or 3 of the old concrete footbridges that are still there, and they've got railings on them that are about that big around steel pipe. And one of them has both railings, and one of them only has one, and it's like completely bent over. But there's a ditch there. There's no way somebody hit that with a car. And Robbie and I tried to bend that pipe, and both of us are pretty good sized guys. We couldn't even we couldn't make a dent in it. I mean, it stayed right where it was at.
Yeah, it's just, that's the scariest part for me, is because when I'm out there and I feel like I'm being watched, that runs through my mind, is all that power in one package that you can't hear.
River just was asking that. Said, "Do you ever feel like you're being watched or being looked at while you're doing stuff?"
Oh yeah, all the time. That's when I know.
I had a number of occasions where I knew I was being watched, and it just never nothing came out where I could see it, but I just knew it was there.
Yeah, and it's not everything doesn't always have to go silent to get that feeling either. There's been times where I've heard the birds and squirrels, but the hair goes back up on my neck, and I went like selfie style photo, and you can see one by a birch tree, and it's standing sideways with its head, shoulders kind of cocked like this, looking from behind the birch tree. So I was like, oh, I knew something was back there, but I didn't know it was that close.
I think the next time we do Combs Ferry, Robbie,
Yeah.
I want whoever's at the front of the group to have a GoPro mounted on their chest, and whoever's at the back have one on their back.
Well, we've talked about doing that before, and we've never put it into play. I think that's a good idea.
That's how a friend of mine gets a lot of his recordings and glimpses. Is on he has a chest one and a back one, and he'll get quite a bit on the back one.
Yeah, I think that'd be a good idea, especially if we take a group out, that whoever's at the back of the group has a camera facing back. We'll mount it on the backpack or back strap or something, but have a GoPro that's watching the trail behind us.
Yeah, because I don't know. To me, it's almost like they think sometimes it's the game, maybe the younger ones, to see how close they can get.
Counting
It's like counting coup.
Yeah,
That's exactly what I was thinking when he was saying that. I was like,
yep. See
I
how
know
close
this game.
before they make the hairless monkey jump.
Yep.
I know a rock at my feet gets me every time. Or the night I was putting that recorder out, there's some foul language because as I'm taping it to the inside of this broken street sign, you hear bang, and it was a rock, and you hear me, oh, F a rock, to my friend, and then you hear 3 more bangs and 3 more F bombs, and then 2 hours later was when all the action started. So it was
like Greg in his man cave when he's sitting there, midnight or after, and something slapped the side of that propane tank. He said it sounded like a gong in a church going off. I said, I can imagine Greg looking like one of those, like that little, what was it, the little dog on the cartoons or the cat in the cartoons when the dog would walk up behind him and go, he'd turn up and jump on the ceiling. I can imagine Greg hung upside down in the ceiling when he heard that going, what was that?
oh, definitely.
Propane tanks will make a lot of racket. You hit them.
Could you imagine something the size of one of them things walking up and slapping one of them tanks? And from what Greg says, this thing's like the tank's like right outside his cabin.
It is like 6 feet off the porch,
and well on into the wee morning hours. That would tend to give you a brown pants moment.
Oh man, that'd be like a brown waterfall. That that's the other thing that gets you too, is something so big and so powerful, and yet, here's a good example right here of a peanut butter jar that had the lid put back on, not a chew mark on it, a few scratches, and this is the one that got put. I put him about 3 feet off the ground, and I had this one bungee corded. So it was like this in the crotch of a tree with colored popsicle sticks underneath it. And the bungee cord was undone and left hanging, and the popsicle sticks were left laying on the ground by color. So the reds were with the reds, yellows, and then this was about 8 feet up. So, but something with so much power is able to do something so delicate.
Yep.
I mean, they're just a complete contradiction to about every law of nature you can think of in some ways.
Yeah.
All that dexterity, all that power. Usually it's one or the other, not both.
Dave Bowers was talking about Bigfoot fingerprints.
Well, Randy Chilcutt's already done that. He's taken prints off of their footprints because they have dermal ridges on their. It doesn't run the same way our pattern and chimps. It runs up and down where ours runs side to side, but he's got thousands and thousands of dermal ridge casts from footprints. And who was it we had on the show that showed us the handprint that we could see the dermal ridges in on the?
It was Tex.
Yeah, that's right. On the side of his truck, you could see the dermal ridges in it.
And that's something else entirely. People try to claim stuff like that's a hoax. If you were trying to hoax something, Are you going to put dermal ridges down to the last detail in a fake footprint to leave prints out there?
Nah.
Yeah.
I mean, good enough
And
that it fools a guy who's got a PhD in primate foot morphology, Dr. Meldrum.
And Randy Chilcutt, who is a certified expert witness on fingerprints, and now is a certified expert on primate dermal ridges, primate prints, however you want to call it. But he's done enough with it that he is certified as an expert witness. So
and
there
Ray,
again, you're gonna fool all these people.
and maybe I'm mistaken, but didn't Randy get into it because of the fact he was trying to debunk
Yep.
and say they were fake?
Uh-huh.
So his whole objective was to go in saying they were fake.
Yep.
But now he's like, oh,
and he went in to prove it was fake, and was like, wait a minute,
yeah,
this looks too real to be fake. And he started digging for his, the law enforcement kicked in with him, and he kept on looking. And he was like, and he got in touch with Dr. Meldrum, and he said, hey, I'd like to study some of your footprints and your castings and see. And Dr. Meldrum was like, absolutely, come on. And he started studying them, and he was like, man, and they were all different, just like every footprint or fingerprint that we've got is different. All the dermal ridges on all the casts that Dr. Meldrum had that he believed were real, all the dermal ridges were different and, unique. But there again,
that's when you know you're onto something, when somebody goes in to say they're fake and then comes out going, we got a problem, Houston.
Take a look at these guys. Let me share the screen here. These were, and I've never tried to claim these were. I didn't know if they were Bigfoot prints or what, but these were on my car the same time in Gatlinburg when I found that gigantic footprint outside. You can see the handprint right there on the door.
Yeah.
I took several shots of that, and it was so greasy. I had to wash the car twice before it came off.
And I saw the car after you washed it at least one time. I don't know if you'd washed it the second time, but I saw it after you washed it the first time, and you could still see it.
Yeah, there was so much oil in it that it was. Let me see if I can get to that. Oh yeah, let's talk. There's the footprint that I took. It was that was right outside our cabin. That was the same night, but these I haven't had these images analyzed. I need to get them to somebody, but take a look at this image, and this just might be pareidolia. I took this because I kind of felt like I was being watched from our porch, and this was up in the Smoky Mountains. Okay, now this was broken over. This was about 30 yards from our back porch, and we were up in the mountains. And let me zoom in on that a little bit.
Eyes and
Does this
nose.
not look like a face?
Yeah.
I have not had this image analyzed. I keep forgetting to do it, but I got two good shots of it, and there, but pulled back a little bit. That looks like an eye, a nose, another eye over here, and the side of a head.
As soon as you clicked on it, it was like instant. Hey, there's a brow ridge right there.
Yeah, I felt completely like we were being watched. And that was the same day I found the track, Robbie.
Yep.
That would be cool to see what they can do with that.
That track was probably fresher than you wanted to know.
Yeah. And there's another shot, same spot, exact same spot. You can see where that tree had been broken over, and all of this was still alive up here. That tree had been snapped recently, and that's whatever that is down there. And this almost looks like it might be part of the top of the head.
We think alike, because that's what I'm trying to figure out if that's it looks like the hairline.
Yeah, it looks like the hairline or the top of that kind of sagittal crest. Yep. But that looks like a face to me. Now again, I'm not going to claim that I've got photographic evidence of Bigfoot. It could just be pareidolia, but I'm not the only one clearly that thinks that now.
No, that's
And when you
That's cool.
when you zoom it back, it becomes obvious.
yeah.
I really think something was watching us right there inside that tree line.
Did you hear the old police song playing in the background?
And Brian, this is for scale. This was the picture of the track. What happened is I went out on our porch the first night we were there up in the cabin, and I did a tongue pop. Popped it 3 times, and I didn't get a response. But later that night, we heard something growl at my wife outside the bathroom window, which was about 15 feet off the ground, and
Oh.
something hit the side of the cabin. And I ran up to the upstairs balcony to look out with a flashlight with my pistol, and I didn't see anything on the side of the cabin. But this is the track I found on the same side of the cabin that was hit. That was in rocky soil on a 45-degree angle. I mean, you can see the definition of the toes.
Oh yeah. In the break, the heel.
I wanted to cast that so bad, but I didn't have any casting material with me. And I was like getting dressed to go to Walmart to get some, and it started pouring down rain.
Uh,
At least you didn't have a 24-hour service van drive through it.
Yeah. Little surprised. There's my foot for scale reference.
oh yeah. Is that, what size shoe do you wear?
10.
So what is that, 17 inches?
Yeah, there's some partials that went up the mountain, but that one track was the one really good one that we got. Yeah, you can see my car when I took it. Yeah, that's from a distance. But that did go down at almost
Steps was at least 3 steps.
Yeah, and that's the kind of trail went through the brush where I was pretty sure it went. You could see where the branches had kind of been pushed aside. That was next to the trash can.
Yeah, somebody's a window peeper, wanting to know what you're doing up there. How often are you
There's
there?
the car again.
Show him the light on the side of the house, DA.
Oh yeah, let me get those. That same night, when we heard the slaps on the side of the house, were they in a different file? God dang it! So I'm not seeing them. No, is that it? There it is. Okay. Had motion activated lights on the back of the cabin. This one is probably, I don't know, 15 feet off the ground, 10, 15 feet off the ground.
Uh-oh, somebody wasn't happy.
Yeah. And the one on the other end is fine. You can see how high up that is.
Yeah.
But that's that same spot I told you that I had the close-ups of. That's that exact spot. There's a busted one. And it wasn't busted when we got there.
And that's the one pointed out toward where you...
Yeah, toward where we heard this. That's the same side of the house where the bathroom window is. In fact, the bathroom window where she got growled at is just about 10 feet this way. Would have been right over in here.
Lucky it didn't come in the window.
Yeah.
A la Boggy Creek.
Yeah. I'd love to see that other picture cleared up. What they
The
can
one
analyze off that.
I'm gonna send that to somebody I know and see if I can get that cleaned up.
And then with the the broken light, the tracks, that's cool. I know a lot of people think we'd be absolutely out of our minds for saying that's cool, but
My wife told me I'm never allowed to do that tongue pop again when we go on vacation. If
you
she
think it
says
was
if
the
I'm with
pop or
you,
do you think it was the number?
do what?
You think it was the pop or the number?
I don't know. Robbie and I have thought for quite a while that some of what people refer to as tree knocks are probably done with a tongue,
Yeah.
because well, let me turn off my audio filter and I'll do it for you. Can you hear me?
Mhm.
Okay, I just turned off the audio filter, but I did this out in the woods, and yeah, we got a weird reaction later, but it didn't react immediately. But I've had reactions. I've had tree knocks come back at me out in the woods doing that.
Yeah, so sometimes you hear about you wonder about the number. One means this, two means this. A lot of people think three means that time to call in the big alpha.
I don't know what it means, but I kind of do that sparingly now. Now that we
Yeah,
have something so up close to the house.
I bet that's the same as the Ohio. That Bluetooth is no longer in my truck. I don't even want to be tempted to play it. I am not that desperate for a reaction.
That's funny. But y'all in the audience, what do you guys think about that? Let me bring that image up again and let y'all. I would like to hear some of y'all's comments about that. Let me bring that up one more time.
43 Big Vic said Grunt Hilda wanted the raspberry preserves
Yeah.
in the beard trimmer.
I'm sure Bigfoot could find quite a use for one of those scallywag knives too.
Probably.
Seemed like
So what do you guys think of this? I mean, you guys heard what we were talking about. So what do you guys think of these? Do you think there's something there, or is it just pareidolia? It's in the same spot, no matter. I changed the angle on the camera. It's slightly different on each one of those images, but it doesn't move. So if it's pareidolia, you would think moving the camera to a different spot would affect it.
Yeah.
But it looks like the same thing in all three positions of the camera. I mean, I've thought that since the first night I saw it, that I had something there, but I keep forgetting to get those analyzed, and I will send those out to somebody and see what they can bring out of them. Vicky says, "Okay, when I blew it up on my screen, you can see his face. I'll scan it in closer, but it gets blurry." This has been one of those cases, like you were saying, Brian, when the actual film probably would have been clearer.
Yep.
That's at least an interesting photo, to say the least. And when you add that to the footprints and that the slaps on the cabin and the growl, it's at least enough to make you go,
Yeah.
Plus the prints on the car.
That's what people don't, get is the picture's great, but when you got a totality like that of everything else surrounding it, but if you're not there, it's hard to express, that picture, that's that one moment in time when that probably went on for a couple of minutes anyway, right?
Oh yeah, I was out there taking pictures off that balcony for probably the better part of an hour.
So, and then the growling and stuff was
was the
How
night
long?
before when it was dark.
Yeah.
We were just getting ready to go to bed. She went into the bathroom to brush her teeth and go to the restroom. And I was already laying in the bed. And she comes out of the bathroom. She goes, something outside the window just growled at me. She says, you think it was a bear? I said, if it's a bear, it's a big damn bear because that window ain't at ground level. So I went out. I kind of went over and looked out the curtain on the sliding glass door and didn't see anything. And I went back to bed. And then she came in and got in bed. And we hadn't been in bed maybe 10 minutes when we heard just a smack against the side of the cabin. Like it was 3 smacks actually. He hit it 3 times, but right just inside that bathroom, which again was on that same wall where that footprint was, but that would have been 10, 12 feet off the ground, even with the angle going up.
You think one of them was where the motion light went out?
I think that's when the motion light went out.
Yeah. I mean, that would make sense. That.
And there were other cabins up there, but they were spaced far enough apart you couldn't see each other. So, it's not like we were alone up on that mountainside. There were other cabins within, short walk, but you couldn't see them through the woods. The woods were so thick. Even though I knew there was another cabin like 50 yards down the little road, you couldn't see it. Even in the dead of night, you couldn't even see their lights.
Yeah, I've had a friend had she actually got an Airbnb in the Appalachians this last time to try and get something, and she gave me the recorder. She said, yeah, there's going to be some stuff on there because her and her husband had 6 kids, so he needed to step outside and get a little air, was going to go sit in his truck and calm down, and within 30 seconds he was back. And she's like, what are you doing? He says, there are sounds out there that should not be out there at 11:30 at night. I can tell you what. He says there's trees being broken, and they had put a recorder out, so I can't wait to hear what's on that.
No, I'd love to hear it.
Yep.
But in the Smokies, she had her and her son had, and I'm trying to think exactly how she told it, heard something in the woods, like a little grunting and a little growling, so they thought maybe it was a pig or something, and but a rock landed at their feet. So her son was 7, and he picked the rock back up and threw it back, and then they got a roar back at him for their trouble for throwing the rock. And then that night at the cabin, they had something walking around on the porch. She said it sounded like it was dragging its nails down the side of the house or scratching at it, and every once in a while, a bunch of rocks being thrown all night hitting the roof. They all wound up sleeping in the middle of the living room because none of the kids wanted to stay in the bedroom. And
I don't blame them.
I said, yeah, you probably shouldn't have threw that rock back. That wasn't probably the best idea.
Unfortunately, I don't have a good enough. I was going to try to do a color inversion on that image real quick, but I don't have a program that'll even let me do that, unfortunately. But these aren't small. These aren't small images. They're high resolution images. Just one of them's over 7 meg. So if I can find somebody that can do a full analysis, they've got a big enough image to work with.
That's like one of those you hear about so and so carrying a picture around for years and years, and all of a sudden realizing they got it, and pretty cool information on that photo.
Hey, DA, I found that picture of the wolf track out behind my dad's house.
Oh yeah,
I just found it and I just sent it to you on your messenger.
Okay. Let me bring that up. Okay, this is the track that Robbie found.
Jeez. Yeah. That's a big paw.
That is a very big paw.
Mm-hmm.
And where did you find that at, Robbie?
That's the one right out behind my dad's shop. About 15 miles from here.
Yeah, that's a big track.
Any activity out there?
That's where that howl came from, too.
Oh, is it? It's all the same place.
Yeah.
Oh, jeez.
And not
Now
far
you got to check what made that howl. That's kind of
not far from where the woman disappeared in the horse pasture. So yeah, there's some stuff starting to shape up over there or over here.
seems like Dogman is finally gaining more recognition. People are
I
a little
agree.
less, than compared to, it's almost like where Bigfoot was before the shows came out. Now people are at least talking about it more and they're starting to come forward. Which is, and you get these people that like to say that, all Bigfoot are bad. And, I wonder how much of the Dogman stuff falls into the same category.
I think any wild animal is capable of being dangerous.
Yeah. That's what I think. I think that, if they're supposed to have the intelligence that they do, which I believe they do, if not more,
Cajun dog, bear traps with nitroglycerin. I'd probably do it.
Yeah, I would say that would probably do it.
it's weird to hear nitroglycerin used in that way. Yeah, I carry a little bottle of nitro with me to keep my heart going just in case,
Yeah, no kidding. Oof. But I think that's a different version of it.
I say you hear nitro, then it's just weird to think about. I think they're different too, but it's one of those. It sounds like it's one of those categories of like the English language with the word two. You got TO, TOO, TWO. You definitely don't want to mix those two nitroglycerins up, though.
No.
Yeah, very true.
You'd have open heart surgery in a minute.
Or you won't live live no more. Or live live. Yeah, somebody was talking about that one day. It was somebody who was born in a foreign country and came over here to learn the English language. They're like, the English language has got to be the most confusing language ever. I'm like,
it's second behind Japanese, right?
I probably, but well, just like the word live and live.
Yeah.
Depending on the context is how you pronounce it. Not, it's spelled exactly the same way. It's just whatever the context of you're using it is how you pronounce it. That's just weird.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's some. Now I draw a blank on it, but there's a few words like that. Like I live in Traverse City, is how it's pronounced, but it's spelled Traverse. So every time you put it into maps, it comes up Traverse City.
Nice, Steve.
Ooh, we're coming up on the 2-hour mark. Holy crap.
Yep.
Oh, flew by.
Yeah, it did. Brian, what are your plans next? What's your next big investigation going to be?
Next, well, we're going to continue the bodybuilding portion of that. Actually, just for a little fun, because a lot of people, when you talk about bodybuilding, and it's fun because I'm pretty humble and I stay covered up a lot of the time. And when I tell people, do bodybuilding, like wearing a tank top now, it's one of those things where I'm going to have to get used to being pretty revealing. And when people don't understand is the amount of clothing that you get to wear on a bodybuilding stage. So I made a little model that I could show on podcasts so the people who don't know. And basically, this is a homemade version of what you get to wear on your bodybuilding stage. So
it's a banana hammock.
Hammock. I'm interested to see if that changes, continues to change where I'm at, and I am going to go back to that area where we had that more aggressive thing. I think if I go in there with no Ohio Haw, I think it'll be a totally different experience. Go in there a little more respectful, and doing the YouTube channels on Bigfoot Outlaw, Hidden Realms, which is kind of fun because it's looking behind the scenes of a lot of different things. You know, I did the whole take on science. I did. I'm going to look at some of these influencers on TikTok, but then we're going to have guests like Colbert and Barb Hartman, and then get back to doing, things I love. And my health is good, so we'll definitely get back out in the woods more often.
Well, brother, we sure appreciate you taking time out and hanging out with us.
No, I appreciate being on. I love coming on with you guys. It's great. The 2 hours flew by.
Yeah, they did. And I always enjoy having you on, dude, because you've had some really interesting stuff happen to you, and we definitely have to get you back on because I want to know more. I want to know what goes on when you go back out to that area.
Yeah, like I said, especially with the whole hormone thing, because once I start dieting, that's when hormones go the other way. So what happens when I go out there smelling more female because my testosterone dropped because I diet so hard? Am I going to get roses and a pine cone or something? Or, hopefully I
start bringing you the blue stones.
Magic, But, and now I really want to look into getting some sort of tracker in the blue, because that's really got my wheels turning. So I'll have to keep you posted on how that goes.
Yeah, I definitely like to hear that. Keep me posted, and you get out there and start doing more research actively again. We'll definitely get you back on.
Yep.
Yeah, we're out there. I'm just waiting for firearm to end now, because they're pretty crazy out there with that stuff.
Yeah, I wouldn't want to be out there playing calls or even looking for evidence during deer season. That's a good way to get shot.
We actually had a guy out in Benzie County who every year he loses a cow, and this year he put COW in big white stencil letters and still got popped.
Well, when I was about 15, I went to check-in station with my deer, and there was a guy from Kansas City with a mule in the back of his truck.
Yeah, that's why I don't go out.
When they said that's a mule, he goes, "Yeah, it's a mule deer." They're like, "No, you dumbass, that's just a mule."
Yeah, that's why I don't go out there. That, and it's almost like the salmon. It's almost seasonal. Like they know, like 2 weeks beforehand, they're done. At least anywhere I go. I mean, you can leave anything you want and it stays. And then about mid-December, things start picking back up, which is about 2 weeks after. So about mid-December, things should start picking back up.
Yeah. I want to head back down to where we found not only that dismembered deer, but where we've had so much activity down in Joe Bald and down in Combs Ferry. And I'm really looking forward to going back in there because it seems like we get more activity once things have cooled off. It's not so hot and the bugs aren't out.
I want to go down to Salt Fork when you guys are down there.
Oh, yeah.
I'd like to get a chance to. I've never been there, and
that'd be a lot of fun, dude.
Sounds like, you had some pretty crazy action the last time you guys were there.
Well, folks, I think we're going to start winding things down. I'm got the hairy eyeball from the wife. She's wanting my attention for something. She opened my door and went. So
Dinner.
I'll just start winding down. Probably. We tend to eat pretty late around here. I keep weird hours. Being a writer, I keep all kinds of weird hours. But folks, thank you guys for joining us. Brian, thank you for coming back, brother. Really appreciate it. It's always a great time because you've got such some really interesting stuff happening in your area. And I appreciate that you're so open with it, because a lot of researchers don't want, they play the cards close to their vest. They don't want to talk about what happened. They don't want to talk about things they've tried. And I've noticed in this community, there are a lot of folks like that. And I think if we're going to really improve our knowledge of these things, that we're going to have to, be more open. We're going to have to share what we know.
Yeah.
Like I've said with the AirTag thing, that just popped into my head, and I'd be thrilled to death if other people started using it. I think it's a great way to gather information.
Yeah, I do too. And it's definitely gonna be something I'm gonna give a shot. And you hit on something that is part of the reason I like doing these, is because I want to be part of a community,
Right.
not just a little clique, which, unfortunately you get, but, as a community, share that knowledge. And, I'm not out to be that guy to prove what, I'm just out to share knowledge and learn. More importantly, learn. I love the learning aspect of it.
I do too. I figure every time I go out or every time I talk to somebody, I'm learning something new or found something I want to try. Don, yeah, I've been down to Joe Bald. Went down there last month and there was no dock. So whatever they were doing down there, it's gone. Oh, hold on a second. I sent those images to somebody, and they just said they did a quick saturation. Let me see what those look like, because if those are good, then let me move this over. Sorry, trying to do two things at once.
No worries. I'm anxious to see what's on there.
I will bring them up, but I'm not seeing a whole lot. Well, there's a close up of the original. There's a greened out area, red.
Red, you can kind of see something.
The blue one, I kind of see a little more detail over here, but I'm not really seeing a whole lot. The yellow brings a little more out. The yellow you can kind of see the brow ridges.
Yeah. There's a definite split in the middle.
Yeah.
See the nose?
We are seeing something.
Yeah.
So that's just
nice
a quick
catch.
examination. We'll take a better look at them, and we'll get back with you guys and let you know what we find out.
Thank you, whoever did that.
My screen is acting weird. There we go. Got it back. My screen was like way small for some reason.
Oh.
But
that was like the other night when I was live streaming, and I saw what I thought was a comment, so I clicked on it, and it was a link to another live show. So I logged out of my own live show into another one.
That's aggravating.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, so I think the color does bring out a little bit of detail. I'd be interested to see what we can get with with even more.
Yeah, so, you start playing with that contrast, and
I'll keep you guys posted. Cool. Let you know what we get. But again, Brian, thanks for being on, brother.
Oh,
had a
thank
great
you.
time, and we definitely got to do this again. Not wait so long next time.
Yeah, well, hopefully now that I'm healthy, we'll if they cooperate, we'll have some more stuff to share. And
I totally understand. I've been dealing with my own health issues this year. It's not been a good year, so I'm feeling a lot better. I'm losing weight again, and I'm planning, now that the weather's cooling off, to be out there. Well, gun season's almost over, so I want to get back out there once I know I'm not going to get tagged for just walking in the woods.
Exactly. I don't want to be on a buck pole. You know?
Me either.
Thank you so much for having me back.
Hey, anytime, brother. You're welcome anytime. And you're always a great guest, and we love hanging out with you. And
Yep.
the little group chat me and Robbie have got going, you crack me up with some of the stuff you send us.
If I can make one person smile during the day, then I feel like I did something. So
Absolutely, man. I appreciate it. Folks, before we start winding things up, I was going to do this at the beginning of the show and completely forgot about it. We've got several affiliates for the show now, but what we're going to do is we're going to do one affiliate per show now. And I thought we would talk a little bit real quick if Robbie would like to give us a little bit of a demonstration about Scallywag Tactical.
I don't know if I've got anything that I could give a demonstration with. Oh yeah, Scallywag Tactical. This is one of their new blades, the Redonda, and I still love my my Gunner's Mate, but this is fast becoming my number 2. This
one's the Tracker.
Yep. Well, and I've got the twin brother to that, the Skinner. Which, yes, we had to decorate it up a little bit for old Scalp Hunter. I figured this would be what he would carry before certain events that have happened. But one of our affiliates, veteran-owned company, Craig and his whole crew are amazing. They make some of the best blades that you could. I mean, it's like every day you check the site or the Facebook group, and there's a new set of blades coming out. They got all kinds of stuff.
I believe they discontinued the boarding axe and the bounty.
Boarding axe, bounty, and the Gunner's Mate right now are all on the discontinue. So now there may still. I think I saw boarding axe listed on the blemish, so they may still have a few of the blemish ones left. But this one's been on the pardon the pun. This one's been on the chopping block for a while. And it's never officially gone away. So who knows? The same thing with the Gunner's Mate, same thing with the bounty.
Mine's not as pretty as yours. Mine's been used a lot.
Well, there's still time for mine to be used. Anyway, if you can't find the knife that you're looking for or something that's going to tickle your fancy, so to speak, on Scallywag, then I don't know where you're going to find anything. No, Don, if my Gunner's Mate is on my go bag, it goes with me everywhere. So my go bag sits at the table next to my front door. So when I go out and get in my truck, my Gunner's Mate's going with me. So that shows you how much I like my Gunner's Mate, because I don't show it because it's on my bag and stays on my bag. So most of these will go with me when I go somewhere. Like when I go to DA's, I'll pack all these up, but my Gunner's Mate always goes with me. So, yes, I love my Gunner's Mate.
I do too.
But check them out. Last time I was on, the blemish blade section was a little small, a little thin. They didn't have as many. Wasn't much left in it. But go check them out. Code DA Roberts 10 at checkout and get yourself an extra 10% off. I can't remember if there's any sales that they're running. They were doing a sale from during Veterans Day, but I think that's already over now.
Sign up for their email list. You'll get informed every time they run a sale.
Yeah, and tell them we sent you. They're a great group of guys. They'll do anything they can for you. And
Absolutely.
They've merged with 2 other companies, and that is just driven all their options. I mean, when we first started doing this Scallywag, there was 20, maybe 30 blades he had.
Mm-hmm.
Now they got that many new ones coming in.
Oh yeah. But yeah, definitely check them out. Don't forget to check out the blemish blades and let them know we sent you, and use discount code DA Roberts 10 to get 10% off your entire order. And that generally stacks with any other special they've got running.
Yep.
Well, and so we're at the part of the program where I like to always mention the 22 a day foundation. We lose 22 veterans a day to suicide, and that is 22 too many. Check on your friends and family that are first responders or veterans in any capacity. Doesn't matter where they served or when. Let them know you're thinking about them. Let them know you care, because 22 is a number we can get down to 0. And it's I've attended too many funerals and seen too many folded flags for this to not hit home to me. So think about your friends and family that have served in any capacity, and let them know you care, because you never know that "Hey, are you okay?" text might be what keeps them off the edge. So make sure you reaching out to them. Make sure you let them know you care. And we've been closing out the show. In fact, I'm going to pour myself a little snort of the Irish. And we've been closing out the show with a toast here lately. And the toast we've been using is from an old Irish drinking song called "The Parting Glass." And when you listen to the song, it's talking about raising a glass to at the end of the day when the bar closes. But if you really pay attention to the lyrics, it's really about saying goodbye to the ones we've lost along the way. So if you guys will join me, it doesn't matter what you're drinking. It can be water or anything. Doesn't matter. But we're going to lift a glass for those we've lost along the way. And the quote says, "But since it fell into my lot that I should rise and you should not, I'll gently rise and softly call. Good night, and joy be to you all." Good night, everyone.
Lonja.
Thank you for joining us. Catch us again Wednesdays and Saturdays on DAX Machina. A special thanks to all our channel members and Patreon supporters. Please make sure to like, share, and subscribe.